agreement on what just has to be banned because the Flex Assassins are not being let through by KT on blue side.
Yeah, and the weird thing is that so far in the LCK, Jace is 100% ban rate. One of the only champions with 100% ban rate. So it does show that things do start off a little bit weird until the stats settle down. Lucian going to be the final ban here, though, on the side of KT. Nothing to worry about here, looking pretty standard for our blue side, continuing that trend to the red side as well with the Cassiopeia and Aatrox taken off the board.
Rolster right now always feels awkward when you have Smeb and BDD to have to ban the Flex Assassins, but maybe just a reality of blue side drafting. We'll see what they're actually pushing for as the Rakan. So far, Snowflower's only champion played on KT is 2 games of Rakan. In the Kesper Cup means he'll have to go elsewhere. Doesn't strike me as a Tom Kench player, kind of a reluctant Tom Kench player like Tucson perhaps. He's usually much more comfortable on Engage. But KT, with the first pick available, will go for the Flex Urgot. Definitely following the SKT school of thought. Urgot and Lissandra was their duo back in the Kesper Cup, and the Urgot is the first pick for KT.
Yeah, it was in fact the Urgot Lee Sin Lissandra that was working very well for SKT and for KT. So, could be going down that route yet again, but haven't seen any Lissandra so far. Has been slipped out just a little bit. It's only been 1 patch and no real changes, so surprising to not see her just yet. The Sion to be locked in response, pretty standard as far as the top lane is concerned, but could also be flexed around the map.
And that's the thing, is the current mid lane meta is a lot of roaming champions. The Galio, the Sion mid, and Sion can match up very well into Urgot and also roam with the best of them in the mid lane. So whether you're against an Aftershock abusing roaming mid laner or just in the top lane against Urgot, you're fine. So it's kind of the rock, paper, scissors answer where you know that neither of the responses from KT will actually trump you. The Sion is so safe in both lanes that you'd have to draft it in some ways, which is kind of an awkward quirk of the meta because I know Sion doesn't inspire too much confidence, too much expectation from fans. But as the draft goes forward, if they do see the Galio locked in, they'll say, all right, we're feeling good about Sion in either lane.
And we can also feel good about Score having a lot of engage options on so many different champions as well. He doesn't have to go to Sejuani this game, although he is one to definitely want to.
Does he go to his old favorite, though? Because KT is the Kha'Zix Galio team of old. And
or the Nocturne even.
Could definitely slide in here. We talked about how Snowflower's comfort is not usually on the Tahm Kench. He has played it, of course, where needed. But look at this. He will lock in Tahm Kench. Tahm Kench Ezreal being denied from Hanwha Life, and that is the duo that most teams are going to. Again, the Genji duo of old that's been renewed in 2019. But it does mean he's going to be playing a bit more for lane, which is not always where we prefer to see Snowflower play.
And also, it looks a little bit more like a pick away rather than a pick for Snowflower as well. They want to deny that Tahm Kench Ezreal lane, which is so incredibly safe. We saw it demonstrated time and time again yesterday, especially by Teddy and Marta with some of their great escapes that they were demonstrating for us. So we'll see whether Snowflower is going to be okay. Course, knows how to play the champion, just doesn't fit his wheelhouse necessarily. Whether he can make the transition from, you know, a protective core JJ style of the Tahm Kench to more of a Marta rotation style Tahm Kench, that could be a way that Snowflower adapts it to his playstyle.
So another benefit that the viewers at home can appreciate from the Sion pick, which we already said could lane against the Urgot or go against basically the effective mid lane champion pool we're seeing from most teams, is now you can lock in Ryze, which you might say, okay, I understand against Urgot, but don't like against Galio. What about the flex? Well, Sion has the flex options. The Galio will be going mid lane, so they can guarantee the Ryze matchup in this particular case. So they actually take some of the pressure off the Ryze. It's not a flex Ryze, it's Ryze mid lane. And Lava's been able to pull off some very intelligent Realm Orbs, and he was one of our more impressive Ryze players rather than just a generic Ryze flex pick abuser. So given that, the Sion has gotten them Lava on comfort, and we'll see if Lava can unleash some creative plays on the Ryze.
And you can see exactly why that Nocturne's been banned away, as well as the Camille with the synergy with that Hero's Entrance, but also denying Globals is going to be huge already. We've got Abyssal Voyage and Heroic Entrance, as well as the Choo Choo Train coming out from the Sion and the Realm Warp, like you already spoke about. You could have champions all across the map in a blink of an eye already, with 2 out of 3 of the first picks for both teams. Pyke to be banned away on the side of KT, as well as the Alistar, so focusing on Key, sort of returning some respect that was already given to Snowflower with that Rakan ban to start things off.
I'm really intrigued about where Kha'Zix goes in this draft. I feel like you can actually get a lot of value of Kha'Zix. Even in these tank-heavy games, we saw Canyon hard carry with just some very intelligent use of the R-Evolve and positioning. We're watching here, and it's going to be actually Bono getting jungle counterpick on the red side. It's becoming more common. We saw this in Kesper Cup quite a lot. He's been defaulting to Lee Sin in solo queue, and Bono's solo queue has always been very impressive. The whisper is that he's a scrim god, but so far hasn't been able to translate it into pro play as much. KT Rolster looking for AD carry here.
Oh, this would
I've
bring
been
a
sitting in the
single
back
tear to my
talking
eye.
to everyone that can listen about how strong Sivir is after the latest buff on patch 9.1.
Oh,
I'm
do
liking
it,
the
score,
choice.
do it, score.
Everyone's
He's been
experimenting with Atlas.
spamming it in solo queue at the moment.
It'd be so bold to blind pick it though, Atlas, but Score is the one who's going to have the final say on his choice here. Would they dare blind pick jungle Karthus against Bono?
You can see the cheeky grin on Score's face. They're not going to do it. It's going to be the Gragas locked in. They were playing with our hearts and our minds. Still, definitely something he could have played, decided to take something a little bit safer into the blind pick.
I think Karthus will be an eventual response to something like the Sejuani if that ever escalates to first pick territory like in other regions. But Gragas is not a high-pressure jungler. We'll see how Hanwha Life read the draft. Zac is very strong in team fights here and can actually have some threat on the KT lineup because, honestly, Atlas, we have to go and polish off our notes from 2015 spring when we were casting LPL together. This is an ultra-typical Sivir comp of Sivir fighting in her tank line, basically speeding up the tank line to get in there and basically fighting on top of each other clumps like you're some sort of StarCraft unit being auto-filled into one.
It is straight up the Wrecking Ball composition where you just go gangbusters at the opponent and smash them in the face with all of your buttons. That is about it. However, Hanwha have got a lot of options in that regard as well. I mean, you can be realm warping your way in there. You've got the train to start it all up. And Elastic Slingshot is such a beautiful engage tool as well. It's just whether or not you actually want to engage on this KT comp.
To me, KT had two trump cards in what looks to be a 10-man man fight again and again. And it's Sivir and her fact that she can push damage onto the back line with her Ricochet, which feels like it's going to be permanently hitting maximum champions every fight. And that's, to me, the real big trump card there. They also, in general, I feel like have the Urgot ultimate, which once again, like we were saying yesterday, if we actually see a Fear Beyond Death arm, it's going to be hitting 5 members just because both these teams are going to be fighting in effectively melee range in the 5v5.
Yeah, it's going to be ridiculous. But not only that, is yesterday we were seeing a lot of Fear Beyond Death not being paired with too much other CC options. Now you've got an abundance of different places to get all this CC from. You've got the heroic entrance, you've got the displacement coming in from that cask, and you know you can trust Score on this Gragas. He's one of our best Gragas players of all time.
We move over to the side of Hanwha Life. To me, the Zac is their big trump card, because Zac is really strong against these comps that fight basically in melee range of each other.
And
the
position-based
kidnaps here
comps, right?
on that Let's Bounce could be immense for the side of Hanwha Life if Bono can actually transfer his power from the solo queue, from the scrim, into a big competitive game for the first time in 2019.
Well, it's going to be the first time today that we get to Summoner's Rift. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's bring on game number 1.
Fans put their cheers out, and Atlas, there was a last-second change that does actually need discussion. Smeb is on top lane Galio in this game, and they were actually able to navigate the matchups a bit. Already talked about how Ryze is seen as a preferred matchup into the Urgot. They did not get Ryze versus Urgot, even though that seemed inevitable. Will be Lava on the Scion as well. So the roaming options are there, but top lane Galio is something you see situationally in solo queue, because right now Galio's power level is so high, is locked in.
It also was one of the things that China embraced a lot. They had a lot of top lane Galios, but elsewhere, it just never hit the meta, really. Like, especially not here in Korea, we've basically never seen it.
Well, the issue there is you don't have the same level 6 power spike, because the thing about Galio was,
you can't affect the
I'm
other
a strong
parts of the
laner,
map.
I get level 6, and suddenly, like you say, the side lanes and your jungle are empowered. The jungler loses out a lot from having a top lane Galio, because now there's only one quadrant of the jungle that he can aggressively invade that the Galio might situation be able to respond to. And also itemization-wise, if you go and mainline proto belt like mid lane Galios do, you have almost no effective mana pool, because outside of taking something like the mana flow ban, and you have no access to blue buff, and it's a kind of an awkward situation. So yes, with the current Galio power level, it's possible. Well, let's see how KT play around the fact that they do have this top lane rather than mid lane Galio.
Yeah, well, it's a really nice combo to start things off here. Justice Punch at level 1 here for Smeb.
Does have that mana flow ban, which, you know, right now feels like it's being abused in basically every lane. Sivir probably has it. And the bot side as well. Don't have secondaries up to confirm that.
We saw Zenit actually start the lane beautifully, hitting both of his first Boomerang Blades, which getting good momentum in a lane against this Ezreal Braum that can take things over against a little bit more of a slow-moving AD carry like Sivir. Certainly important. Good to see him bullying things out, and needs to try and convince people that he is going to be the one chosen for the KT Rolster bottom lane, as Score denies the top camp after invading Bono.
And Score and Smeb can definitely pull off what we saw done yesterday on Rise top, which is camp him. And that's one of the advantages of having Galio top lane. From level 2, Flash Taunt is there. The Gragas has plenty of gank assist. There's a lot of kill pressure and tankiness onto this Rise, and maybe just snowballing topside is KT's read on how to justify flexing this Galio to the top lane.
And one of the things that we always spoke about, especially with KT, they were always very, very good at playing around lane priority. And I think it's absolutely beautiful that we get this to start things off, this particular flex with Smeb on the Galio, which he's not necessarily as comfortable on. BDD is a fantastic Galio player, we all know that. And Smeb was one of our most successful Urgot players as well. So playing for lane and playing for this priority is something that has always been in KT's wheelhouse. And it seems no matter what their makeup is going to be based on their players, because Deft is gone, Marta's gone. Since you can take some of the ingredients out of the KT, but you can't take the KT away.
Bono himself is bots. I don't know if he was spotted on this gank.
Yeah, it's a really nice sidestep there from Snowflower, though. Still gets bonked together as the Devour comes in. Grey Health still available here as Snowflower waits on it so long, now gets the extra regen and can hang around a little longer.
Seeing a preview of what will happen in team fights, Zach also has that positive interaction against the Tahm Kench. The kidnap will kidnap the person in the belly of the Tahm Kench, and like we see, you're kind of always in position to
it's the 2-for-1
get the
special.
full value with the 2-for-1 special on the Q. So given that already a flash down, will at 6 minutes be able to change over to a Ghost or an Exhaust perhaps to try to get himself through the laning phase. But for now, bot lane on the back foot. We already said that KT's game plan seems to be top lane focus. Bot lane, Tahm Kench losing his summoner makes that game plan a little bit more risky when you're leaving bot lane to its own devices.
Yeah, and I want to sort of talk about what we saw yesterday. We saw a lot of compositions that were almost the antithesis of one another. We saw a lot of different strategies meeting, a lot of sort of split the map compositions 1-3-1 into team fight, but this is looking a little bit more streamlined as far as both of these teams really want to get all of their CC down and fight 5v5s. But what will that look like as we move into the later stages of the game?
Well, 5v5 is going to have one very clear thing to discuss, because Atlas, good news, we could have 8 teleports in this game.
Oh, God,
as
no.
everyone has teleport.
Don't worry, it was nerfed, guys.
Yeah, we have nerf teleport on 6 people, Unsealed Spellbook on 3. Actually could have 8 teleports rolling through in this game. And remember, guys, it's 9.1. We're in the future. We don't have cancelable teleports.
Yeah.
So, Atlas, I'm going to leave it to you to decide when to scream, because you could have a lot of screaming about teleports to do in the first big team
and
fight.
At least now I know that they're going to happen as well, Papa Smithy.
But you
Thank
can't
goodness.
just scream about all 8 of them, Atlas.
Yeah, I can. I can say all 8 teleports. It'll be fine. Don't worry. Don't doubt my ability to scream. If I can do anything, it's that.
There needs to be a Reddit meme made, a Twitter meme made now of,
Thanks, man.
as we'll watch Bono walk away, of Riot making some patch notes changes, and then 8 teleports, and then the "this is fine, dog."
Yo. Well, we actually saw 2 members of Hanwha Life Esports just nope out of those situations. Bono saves his buttons for it. However, we've got Lava that has to use his ultimate, so no unstoppable onslaught for this foreseeable future.
Can confirm there is one way to cancel teleport right now, and that's any form of stasis, so you can stopwatch out of the teleport channel, but that's the only way you can do it.
Okay. That's good to know. Haven't actually tried that. That sounds like a very expensive teleport.
Oh, yeah.
And, Lava has to flash as well. BDD threatening him with that fear beyond death, and Lava understanding that he was getting to that threshold.
The lane positioning from BD there was actually very intelligent. He was body blocking the huge Scion model from not taking an extra turret shot, and that's why the fear from beyond death actually looked like it might arm. It's a very smart lane positioning there, sort of mechanic you don't often have in League, because there is Ghost and other mechanics that makes targeting and pathing a little bit more unpredictable. But in this particular way, actually able to punish him and gets a free summoner in the mid lane.
Speaking of summoners, teleport is going to come in towards the bottom side at Snowflower, making his way back to lane. Now has the heal in his hand and will recharge that flash once again. Spell shields from Zenit have been very, very nice, and you can see it's reflected in the even CS numbers. His bottom lane is no slouch in the Ezreal Braum, so good to see the more hard-scaling Sivir having a decent time.
And it makes me wonder if we're now at a place where TP Sivir is something that seems pretty viable, whether this is a result of the game being Gragas versus Zac, or if it's just the meta in scrims. Because you can understand when the junglers don't bring a lot of damage. You don't have to have heal as much to keep your support alive. Unsealed Spellbook means that the Tahm Kench can take heal as well. Or is it just an every time thing right now? We don't have enough of a sample size to know. Last time we had a TP 80 carry meta, it was MSI on the beginnings of summer before there were a lot of adjustments in Summoner Smell Power. But given that, despite being a 500 range 80 carry, Zenit gets to refill his mana, push it up, and just try to have as much lane presence as possible, even short of a combat summon.
Yep, certainly has that and has the wave clear in spades with that Ricochet as well as the Boomerang Blade, so no worries there at all. Sangyun has to get used to standing under this turret. He now has the Sheen and the Tear, so pretty perfect back when it comes to what Blue Ezreal wants to do. Tal clearing out some wards here. Hasn't actually had the focus that Khan had yesterday. We saw his 0-2-0. Not going to talk about the bounty because that was a bit silly. But he had a rough time in the early game, despite the outcome of the match.
The only bounties I want to talk about right now are bounty bars, Atlas. Aren't they delicious?
I'm not that much of a fan of coconut-based candies, I'm sorry.
You guys aren't aware it's... I don't know if it's dark chocolate, but it's dark chocolate with coconut inside.
Yeah.
I don't know if bounty bar is an international thing. It might just be an Australian thing.
It might be. I was always, you know, remember those honey bars? What were they? I can't, oh man.
Something crumble,
it had nougat in it as well.
I don't have the
someone
name.
tweeted to me. I know there's some
Violet
Australians.
crumble, maybe?
No.
That's another Aussie chocolate.
That was a good one, though. That was like honeycomb. That was cool.
This is hopefully going to be some aggression on the side of KT Rolster. Just right now, it's about scuttle control. Sadly, no scuttle counter, but we know that Score always makes a beeline for those scuttles. Sivir and Tahm
Here's
Kench.
a spoiler. Score's taken more this game.
And here's a spoiler. Sivir has more pushing of a wave than Ezreal, especially after the ultimate nerf when it comes to the pushing side of things. So Zenit pushes in. Gragas is the benefactor, picking up that scuttle and a 3-camp advantage, and maybe even a start on the Cloud Drake for Score.
And this is not necessarily Score being way better as well. This has a lot to do with the fact that KT, you can see, are past the river in every single lane. They have the priority, they have the push advantage, and they've been able to keep Hanwha Life very honest in their positioning around the map, meaning that this can happen. Score just has his complete run of the jungle on a champion that has a lot more agency in the early game regardless. So as far as early game is concerned, it's classic KT Rolster. They just have the champions that do it better.
It's also classic Score because, yes, I agree with you on the simple point there, but also it's, all right, these comps are pretty even, these lanes are pretty even, no one's racking up a huge lead, there's no kill pressure in any lane, but what do we have and what do the enemy have? And the one thing KT do definitively have is a pushing bot lane.
Yes.
Why not push and take an objective around that? And that's what Score provides. We saw Umti pop off on the Lee Sin in Kesper Cup. If you ask me what does Umti provide, it's a better Lee Sin than Score. That part is for sure.
Yes.
But Score is an intelligent player. There was a lot of questioning on whether he would play on in 2019.
Is he a dinosaur, Papa Smithy?
And that is a question we don't fully know the answer to because we do kind of reflect about how young talent is likely to lead the way in 2019. But Score had to actually confer with the government to work out if he could even play in 2019, given the looming army requirements that he'll have. Got the go ahead, finally making his re-debut on this new roster. So nice to see Score, and also that KT aren't missing a trick when it comes to early game macro. Solid stuff from them.
Yeah, I think Bono might be missing a trick though, having left his team, which is a little bit unfortunate.
Right now, not on a pro roster is Trick, so shout out to Trick. He's a professional streamer these days, I believe.
Theoretical free agent, so if anyone wants him for their teams, you know.
I know what Score wants.
He wants Tal, and he's going to get a free body slam in there. The ultimate is going to follow as well. Flash use so that Smeb can't catch up to him with his own, but he's in enemy territory at the moment. So much damage, gets himself the passive shield, but damn! That barrel did some work as Smeb gets hit by the Unstoppable Onslaught. It's a decent array of CC, but you can see Smeb's not scared. Justice punching all the way forward, gets himself the taunt in order to make the decimating smash not land, but Bono makes his way in. BDD, he's come up though, and Score's got a stopwatch. Bono has to be careful. Cell division not going to be there, not going to be procced as well, because the ultimate's going to miss from BDD. Stopwatches are plenty. Lava probably going to survive this one, but KT walk away with first blood.
Sloppy stuff on both sides, but more punishing for the side of Hanwha Life, misjudging the situation there. Was Tal. He thought with Phase Rush he could just run away, but there was not going to be the ability to, because Predator was still available from Score. It was a brush camp into a late Predator that was always going to guarantee the kill. He tried to give it to Smeb, unable to do so. Smeb has mainlined the Proto Belt here in spite of having some mana issues with this particular Galio top situation. We'll have a replay to go over it, but regardless, Smeb does have the damage the Proto Belt provides. And on this replay, Score intelligently once again has been ahead of the play twice. One to get a bot lane Cloud Jake the second time to pick up this kill. They were always going to get it, and Score himself was saying, well, I'd prefer Smeb gets it. In the end, Score has to claim it.
Yeah, he does. And after this, it was all a little bit of shenanigans up there towards the top side. I'm glad we cut the replay.
It was a bit yakety sax after that.
Definitely a bit yakety.
As lava rolled in, ignited the enemy, then flashed away.
Yes.
The anti-synergy of summoners there, unfortunately happening.
Yep.
Overall, still is going to be big advantage to KT, and the only two meaningful moments, they've been just ahead of the play of Hanwha Life, and they have a Drake and First Blood to show for it, and a little 700 gold lead as well.
The thing I want to talk about is the bottom lane. We saw a little bit of the laning action there, and we know that, Ezreal, especially seeing him yesterday, is incredibly ridiculous and was banned a heck of a lot throughout the day, but Teddy made him look straight up broken. Zenit is making Sanyun look very, very approachable.
Now, we have to once again use the hallowed S word here, because scaling is something that Ezreal still needs. He needs time. 2 items and a half when he has his Muramana transformation and a Lost Chapter on the way to Archangels can be big. Bono being evaded.
Yeah, there's the flash from Smeb as well. They want to get that cell division. Ultimate comes in from BDD. Not going to be able to get any fears, but they're just going to tidy up this kill, deliver it over to BDD, and he's going to have a much better time in the mid lane. Even Snowflower was ready in the wings, waiting to bring them out.
And after that first kill, KT have continued the early game aggression that's always been a thing of this lineup since the start of 2017. On the front foot, roaming from top lane with Smeb. They pick up the kill there. They might get the Rift Herald as well. They're getting so many free lunches in this particular game, Atlas, and all Hanwha Life can do is sit back and lose the minimum, whereas KT, they're taking everything.
They are certainly taking everything. BDD looking like he's synergizing with this roster so beautifully. Already we were seeing hints of that during the Casper Cup, but this has been KT always meeting in the middle, making it a 3 versus 1 and a really bad time for anyone on Hanwha Life.
Yeah, you can't attack them through the bot lane because the Tahm Kench is there, and that means the 3 we mentioned, the Flying V of BDD, Score, and Smeb get to make plays like this. Look at the position of everyone else on the map. Tal's chilling under his turret, and Sion's just looking over, putting up his hand, saying not much I can do here without dying as well. That's all about strong synergy between the 3 that will need to be the carry if KT Rolster are to regain their crown as they do come in reigning champions.
Yes. Sangyu down here does have the push now, which is unique against Zenit on this Sivir. It means that Bono not going to have that opportunity to set up that gank as they're going for the second dragon. 4 members down here in a Realm Warp available for Tal to get himself into this fight. Good Unbreakable to deny all of that boomerang damage, which has been buffed. Not going to be going down per champion anymore. Hanwha Life start this one up. Can they do this effectively is the question, as heroic entrance is available from Smeb. They decide to engage onto Zenit, but Snowflower has himself the Devour to get him out of the way. Now Zenit's trying to get the work done. Flashes out of the way of the True Shot Barrage. Keeps himself alive as the hero's entrance comes in, and Lava is in trouble. Taken down early. Zombie Sion can't do anything. It's 2 kills so quickly in this fight, and BDD so masterfully tanking up all of that damage, and Smeb now takes up his role on the front line and will score the last kill for this fight. Most likely is Key and Sangyun have to look on in horror as they lose the fight.
KT is still multiple steps ahead of Hanwha Life. Hanwha Life just say, okay, 2 are separated, we need to kill one of them, but they don't respect the global of the hero's entrance and the fact that the rest of KT can turn and join in. BD flashing over the wall. In formation, Hanwha Life are too far behind to make these front-to-back team fights work, and we were already favoring KT, especially because of Sivir and Urgot. We're going to roll the replay now to understand. Hanwha Life say, okay, let's turn on to Snowflower and Zenit, but notice that Bono can't actually get into the fight. Bono needs to be the one punishing Tahm Kench and Sivir like we outlined earlier. It's too desperate at this point, and a single Tahm Kench kill is never going to be enough.
Yeah, the 3-man taunt after the flash coming in from Smeb was so beautiful in that fight as well, and Zenit used all of his buttons in exactly the right way to keep himself alive, keep everyone topped up on movement speed with that on the hunt. Hanwha Life had nowhere they could go.
And it's that illustration of the fact that Sivir is so much superior to Ezreal in these team comps, because Ezreal doesn't have his core items. He doesn't have 3 items, and his 3 items are more about poking people under turrets than DPSing down Urgot, Galio, and the Gragas. It's an insanely tanky front line, and while the number looks big, the damage was never meaningful in this particular fight, and the Galio himself, 2,700 damage, already going the Proto Belt, paying off in spades for Smeb.
Yeah, and you can see Score setting up shop here on the bottom side as well. Wants to get a pick off on one of these Hanwha Life players, but probably not going to have a chance to. Of course, the Unbreakable, fantastic against Gragas.
Score!
Gets the flash, is going to land. It's going to save Sungyu, but Key might be in trouble. Bono finds himself in exactly the wrong position, has to kidnap his way out of the fight, which is exactly what you don't want to do. But Score snipes him with another barrel. This guy, welcome back, Score. So glad to have you on the roster.
He's just so far ahead of the play. He's playing 4D chess while everyone else is trying to play checkers in this game. Once again ahead of the play. Only Flash will save Sungyu, but it's not enough to save his support. And BDD is the first Urgot I've ever seen to consistently outroam a Scion.
Yeah. Also, he's been hitting a lot of these Fear Beyond Deaths, but they haven't necessarily meant anything, as Sungyun's the one that has to deal with Shelly as she charges another turret. Double charges coming in, first turret block going over to KT as well. I know it's not necessary to talk about it as much anymore, but there's a little bit more icing on this cake that KT have put together for themselves.
Old man Score, we always talk about him as always playing the Hillbilly Gragas and being maybe the best Gragas jungle of all time.
Yeah.
He's always on point with these plays. Yes, Sungyu is saved, but it requires his flash. Nothing Score can do about that one. It's the fact that on a Predator jungler, he's never behind popping the Predator trying to get to a fight. He's starting the fight. In situations like this, snipes down the Braum. Great play from KT's jungler. Welcome back to the LCK, the reigning champion Score.
And it's also, looking at it, this is probably one of the hardest games to play as Braum, because there are so many things you got to look out for with the Unbreakable. Of course, Winds of War now, with especially on this patch, is just bonkers as far as damage. You can block a lot of that with the Unbreakable, but then you have to then watch out for, Lickitung coming in with Tahm Kench. You've got Boomerang Blades to watch out for, and then of course the all-important explosive cask. What do you use that button for against this composition? So difficult, and Key had no idea in that last fight. Put it in arguably the wrong position.
If you're behind the play, it's impossible. I think if you're ahead of the play, you use it for cask every time, but obviously cask is not the easiest thing to judge, and there is the stun now on the body slam that makes it difficult to work out the timing. It needs to be cask. That's the ability that's the cleanest to be interrupted on there. Don't do much against Sivir if you're Braum. But right now, Key's been a bit off the pace, and KT have been ahead of the pace. Wave clearing in mid lane now. Sivir in the mid lane with 2 items, obviously, is not going to be punishable by the Ezreal at all. We talk about Ezreal from ahead in mid lane being so consequential. No Tahm Kench and no map control for Hanwha Life means that Hanwha Life are using a lot of tools that could be wielded from ahead so potently, they suddenly look a bit more bland, a bit more blunt when you're behind the game. About 4,000 gold on KT.
Well, Hanwha Life still looking to try and make a proactive play here in this mid lane, stacking up with 4 members. Teleport unavailable here from Lava. That needs to charge back up. I believe it's going to be a quick one because the summoner was recently refreshed.
We almost have scoreboard bliss being done by KT. There's 5 Merc treads, slightly askew. So we need Snowflower to complete an item to get the straight line going.
And the Oblivion Orbs as well, understanding that that item is just broken on both of the magic damage dealers.
But 5 Mercury treads lets you know that League of Tanks, World of Tanks we might even call it, is definitely happening in this game.
Trademarked at this point, Pops.
Free marketing for them, I guess, for that one particular reference. We're 1 item away from KT just being unassailable in the 5v5s. We all know about 6 item Sivir. I think 3 item Sivir with the Infinity Edge would be most of all that is required at this present juncture. BD continues to be just the hugest nuisance, out-pushing, out-farming, and out-roaming a Scion. Classic BDD. They push up the mid lane. If they get the mid lane turret down here, get some control wards on Baron, and see Hanwha Life just really be under pressure.
Well, now Score is just waiting for them to try and defend. Half the health bar here, but not able to really get too much work done, and KT very patient with this play. Smeb understanding that he can back up old man Score as he makes his engagements, and BDD trying to provoke. Not getting too much out of Hanwha Life at this present point.
Right now, you just look at the minimap. The river is controlled by KT, a line of 3 control wards there. Scorer is saying no control wards defensively for this particular fight. They want to get this turret by any means. We'll see what tools they use and if Hanwha Life go for a desperation engage.
Yeah, good buffer to stay in there from BDD to keep himself out of the way as Zenit has himself the spell shield and Tahm Kench. He's very safe to step up as this more low range. 80 carrying the Sivir, and it looks like Hanwha Life are going to get a bit of sigh of relief breathed into them. This minion wave no longer crashing into the turret.
But the problem with Hanwha Life is, yes, they don't have eyes KT on Zac, but they have eyes on the right side. They know Zac has to be left side. So they know to kite downwards. They want this turret. We'll see if Zac does go for an emergency engage.
Well, True Shot Barrage is going to be used on the wave as there's the explosive cast because BDD just gets it alley-ooped into him. That was so cute with the disdain, but unable to actually find anything. They get some summoner spells, though, as Lava's flash is now down.
And now Lava will find it harder to walk up and wave clear with the decimating smash, and they're closer and closer to this mid lane third outer turret, and thus even further extension of reliably pushing forward wards and map control for KT. Right now, if you're the coach of KT, basically everything you would have told this team, they have performed on. This is the flawless VOD review of no information required in the first 22 minutes. But we're still at the potential turning point. If they mess up the next step, things could still be stalled out from the side of Hanwha Life. We still prefer KT's comp in the team fights, but it's a 60-40 at best on that particular variable. KT push up, TP back in by Zenit. BF Sword into Infinity Edge on the way, and 2 autos required to take down this turret.
Well, that is a teleport that is not going to work out. Good flash from Zenit there, as well as Bono kidnaps himself back, but is he actually going to survive this one? Red buff, not enough to tick down on top of him. Don't even think it was available there, so he's going to survive. I believe Cell Division was available, but that would have been great to get that if you're a KT fan. They'll move back, they'll grab themselves the second Mountain Drake of the game.
Actually, if Cell Division is popped, he'd have more health to contest the Drake here, so it's 100% freebie on the Drake, because they know that he's going to be recalling. He's out of the fight for the next 15 seconds or so. They wait out the two-shot barrage. More difficult to steal away those neutrals now after the nerf to minions and monsters. Another Mountain Drake on the menu. The Baron threat is not immense from KT, but every Mountain Drake makes it a bit more possible.
Yeah. And Zenit, every item makes it a little bit more possible, as well as it looks like Guardian Angel will come in as his third item of choice. Seen this a little bit from our Crit 80 carries, but likely he holds onto the stopwatch there as well, just to give himself the ability to go into stasis. Largely to do with preference and where you are in the game as to whether that Infinity Edge comes in or the GA.
Watching Hanwha Life going for the emergency play, and honestly the best use of that play right now is to find an area of the map and defend it, and it needs to be Baron, because if it's anywhere else, Baron is on the menu for the side of KT. So I'm just making some valiant Baron defenses. I feel like they'll be short-lived because KT has priority in the side lanes and can just push up and then start taking things like Scuttle Crabs and clearing vision, as we're seeing, as I mentioned. KT push up through the mid side. Again, no Infinity Edge yet. Stopwatch actually picked up for a bit more immediate impact in the next fight over something like a pickaxe. But KT push up, they clear waves, and Hanwha Life in almost every case need to be worried. I think Bono's probably the only person that can walk up pretty unaccountably, because he can ult out of almost any bad scenario.
Yeah, he can. Can't quite use the Elastic Slingshot to do it, because he'll get CC'd out of it, but yeah, you're right. The ult, unstoppable, so we'll be able to escape. It's a big button, though, and something that they'll need in these fights is he does spot B2D. B2D deciding not to do anything frisky on his own. Now Key's looking for it. We've got a choo-choo train coming into the back line. But that's the Devour to keep the Sivir alive, and now Lava is in amongst 5 members of KT, and Score successfully got rid of the other 4 by himself. Now Lava's zombie form is trying to do some damage, but it's not working. Bono, once again, too low to go back in, and KT will take 1, and they'll move away.
KT just have the answer to every brain teaser. These guys can't be stumped. They're so smart at how they kite there. Smeb looks for it.
Only 1, but still going to be enough there on Detal. They get some more damage down as B2D trying to get rid of them, but not able to get too much damage done, and Hanwha Life once again limp away.
If this is an aptitude test, I think KT is going to be in the gifted class this season. Really, really smart how they problem solve. Hopefully we get a replay of that particular engage, because the moment you see Sion flying from the back, a lot of teams lose their mind and lose the maximum in a scenario like that. Instead, problem solving is smart. They get out, and all they have to invest is Score's stasis and his flash. They're going to be coming soon here. Consider this scenario. If you pause it here, which we don't have the technology to do, you have a Sion coming from the backside, and Zac, one of the most punishing engaged junglers, but instead, Score just sacrifices his stasis in the front line while they instantly 4-man turn on the Sion. From Fear Beyond Death arms here, you just flash into the 4 that were trying to take down Gragas. You get an AoE stun, and the Ricochet does the rest. So they don't get the ultimate maximum here, but they're so close to getting extra credit, and instead, it's just an A for the side of KT.
And people were just looking at Score in awe. That was what was happening. 4 members just staring at his golden body, wondering what they need to respect as he comes out of that stasis, which made sure that Lava wasn't actually going to survive. He's now gone back, made sure that he's got as many options in a team fight as possible with Barrier and the Ignite now picked up. But that was their big play. Was left wanting after the fact.
Infinity Edge is now down. KT Rolster with double Mountain Drake. It's such a simple game to play. They've done the hard things, now you do the easy things of 3 control wards around a Baron, count out those blue trinkets and control wards. And then Baron is kind of at the mercy of when KT Rolster choose to start it. Their turn is God tier, so S+ tier in terms of turn. Baron's speed, kind of just an A- because it's mostly just going to be Sivir, but the turn, whether it's an Abyssal Voyage or Gragas and Galio combining for a big CC wombo, they have so many options around Baron. They've done everything else, so just waiting for KT to finally feel strong enough to start that objective.
Yep. The only thing that you could really put in the cons column is the fact that Zenit didn't sell his Doran's Blade in order to buy some controllers.
It's true.
You know? One of the classic things, however, this is his second game that we've seen on stage with KT. I'm sure he can clean that up.
And actually, Zenit is a player who has been around pro teams, but played very few pro games. And I'm talking about pro in the sense of just even including things like challengers. He was on ES Sharks most recently, never played a stage game, 5 games for iGaming Star in 2016-2017. So really has played very little, even approaching pro play. Had a game in Casper Cup, it was a victory, but he didn't look impressive in lane. No. So at the end of the day, here he comes. First meaningful pro game. He's actually been very reliable on Sivir positioning, which is not the easy thing to do, but that's not a great moment.
Yeah, that's a Cuss Curse right there, as the disdain has to be used here from BDD, and he's the one paying for Zenit's misfortune here as Lava takes a lot of damage. All the buttons have been pressed, but KT still looking good. The Ignite is down onto Zenit. Oh my goodness, Snowflower held on to the Devour for so long, and Hanwha Live still unable to do it. BDD finally goes down, and the Zombie Scion also is Tal. That was not one, keeping Bono alive there, but looked interesting. The slowdown going to come in now as Score trying to get away, and Sangyun has to be respected. The cheeky auto is going to make sure that Key pays for the stand behind me that he did not want to commit to. Now underneath this turret will be KT on the ropes.
But can they actually wave clear under the turret here? Sangyun's almost full health, so risky for KT to stay. An in-combat TP used to keep Bono alive. Seems like a very, very heavy price. We've never seen that before, even though we know the interaction. It definitely looked out of order. But Bono now has his smite. They can start the Drake, but KT with 3 members might repel them anyway.
Yep. Not actually going to lose that much from this Hanwha, but their health bar is certainly not there, and that means 3 Mountain Drakes now belong to KT.
TP available for BDD. There was a deep TP ward on the blue buff. That's why Hanwha Life like, wait, we could still be flanked by a respawning member. Zenit's almost out of this fight instantly, and then the damage should be a query for KT. So there was no guarantee they would win this 5v5 because it was more of an effective 5v4. Zenit stays alive long enough. Tom Kench, like you mentioned, only gets 1 Devour in a team fight, uses it for the perfect time to take him out of the jaws of that Let's Bounce. It's not a flawless team fight because of Zenit being DPS down earlier, but it's still an overall win for the side of KT. Creative stuff from Bono, and the side of Hanwha Life keeps Bono alive, but hard to say if it's worth it, and certainly unorthodox.
And also, let us realize that Sangyun now has both of those mana items stacking very close to in the Seraph's Embrace, and now has the Hextech Gunblade as well. So 4-item Ezreal is online. He might be able to take this game into his own hands if he gets the right fight for himself. Already out-damaging the Sivir in the team fight, which is not what I would expect after that Infinity Edge was picked up.
But it's what you would expect when you saw him at 300 health before it started. And that's the thing there, is how do you simulate Sivir giving up her health bar and her auto attack potential? She wasn't even able to get in ricochet range because of the fact that she fell so low. How do you make that happen again? And Hanwha Life will need something creative to actually zone Sivir out of a fight. We talked about it in the pregame. The way Sivir works in comps like this, she fights with her tank line. She couldn't do that because she was DPS'd out of the fight before it began. And now with a GA there, Hanwha Life, very difficult to see Sangyun out DPSing Sivir in a true team fight again.
Well, now, especially now with the GA completed from Zenit, so going to be a little bit more safe as well, especially considering Snowflower will be in the back pocket. Makes it a little bit easier to get the Devours. And yes, Papa indicating to me that we do have 3 Mountain Drakes, which was the reward from KT. Getting better positioning after that fight. Key's going to face check. BDD not going to get too much damage, but does kill the ward. Corrosive Charge just to say, get off my lawn.
KT still do not want to start the Baron. They don't feel like they have enough vision to pull that off. They walk up here in his Bono.
Yeah, Zenit didn't have the spell shield available for the kidnap, so Devour has to be used, and now KT do need to respect Hanwha Life without having that button to save Zenit.
Seemed like Key misjudged the Glacial Fissure there. It was too late to be able to use his Initiator, and the E didn't actually receive any fruit on the side of Bono, so in the end, waste on that ult. So KT, like we mentioned, they start the Baron. Right now, only a single smite, but Snowflower will have a second one soon.
Yeah, and this tower is about to go down, so Hanwha Life do need to invest resources to try and get over here, as On the Hunt is going to be used just to rotate and get the Sivir over to the Baron and start DPSing it down. Bono going to potentially be able to get in position, but this Baron's going down so fast. 3 Mountain Drakes smashed that one down, and now Smeb able to get a lot of damage onto Key and Lava. Zenit trying to find himself as Bono, just not picking the right fight right here. Hanwha Life wander away. They don't have their blob. Flubber no longer able to help them out, and they'll definitely lose this inner turret. KT on the warpath.
Seems like the communication on Hanwha Life is really a big problem. They were too slow on the Baron check, and then Bono goes in when none of his team was indicating they wanted to join, and too late. It misjudged the scenario, and there was poor comms there. KT walk up, they've got the Baron, they've got everything. They want the first inhibitor. With the minion wave dying, it's going to take a little bit of time with BDD split pushing up top.
Yeah, BDD going to be able to take this inner turret very easily, and now as the next minion wave moves in, this inhibitor turret should be finished. Smeb charging up the taunt once again. He's going to get Lava, but he's relatively tanky. They take down the inhibitor turret. Is the inhibitor actually going to be taken, or will this be KT? Overextending mildly. The heal going to be used just to top everyone up.
Bono's back. Sivir not known for her sieging, of course, with her short range. KT feel like a shop into a reformation is the right way to go. I tend and am inclined to agree. They back away here. I see double Gargoyle Stoneplate being considered until Gragas just moves over to an Abyssal Mask for a bit more team AoE magic damage. They know that right now they're unkillable. Stoneplate or no. Sivir's got a Lord Dominic's regard. So
that's 6 items, Papa.
Thanks very much, he says. No problem now, shredding through the front line of Hanwha Life.
Yep, Bono or Lava. Put him in front, it would feel exactly like he was smacking down any squishy, so this is real scary, and GA, I believe, was bought almost outright by BDD on that back.
It's fun to talk about something that we almost never discuss. Look at the vision score difference between Gragas and Zach.
Yep.
109 vision score. Again, this is about putting down wards, clearing wards, of course, the big thing for someone with sweepers.
Anyone.
It's massive vision score here, and it's not just, hey, he knew where the enemy wards were and killed them, and he's on the winning team, so on the winning team, the jungler is going to have a better vision score. But we saw that score was ahead of the play for the majority of this game, and when you're ahead of the play and also as smart about reading the game as score is, you just end up clearing vision, being ahead, and putting down smart vision for the rest of your carries to be able to put out the damage that KT were able to, so it's not a normally discussed statistic, but I feel like in this particular game, it's indicative of what we've seen in Score versus Bond.
And also was something that Score always fell behind on because Marta was in the game, right? And that guy was the god of wards. And Snowflower not putting as many down, but Score picking up that mantle beautifully, especially with the amount that he's killed. Racking up that score so high. Another taunt on the bottom side of the map as Lava actually taking some relevant damage from Smeb. Now that Void Staff has been picked up, Inhibitor going to fall down in the mid lane. As Hanwha Life Esports look like they don't have any idea what to do at this point in time. Smeb gets another taunt as Bono makes his way in, but could it all be a cunning ruse? As Snowflower makes his way around, wants to take his Gargoyle out of that potential fight. There's the flash in from Score. Tile gets himself out of the way with the flash, and now Hero's entrance does come in, but the GA's being popped, and Zenit has to flash to get out of the way. Bono will pay the price once again. Cell Division going to be in there. No teleports invested this time. Sorry, buddy. You are just dead. And the second inhibitor will go down. 1 remaining, and it doesn't have a turret.
Definitely seeing the sum of the gold lead here for KT. It's difficult to siege with this comp, but when you're 10,000 gold ahead, you can make small mistakes and still win the game.
Yeah, one of those games where you're smacking him with your wallet. Papa Smithy is disdain from BDD to bring himself into the fight underneath these turrets, but they look like they're made out of paper mache this game because they are going down so extraordinarily fast. BDD not even going to have that GA popped as it gets devoured by Snowflower. They're just having fun now as we move to the end of game number 1 and a dominant KT Rolster victory. Sangyun a big health bar and a lot of items, but there's only one more turret here, and the flash in from BDD as he wants to get that fear doesn't. As now Sangyun and Key have to look on as their Nexus explodes.
Definitely a game of 2 halves, Atlas. The finesse of KT in the early game to the brute force with the blunt force trauma onto Hanwha Life in the late game. 37 minutes, one of our longer games so far in LCK Spring 2019, but it felt like there was only one horse in the race, and that horse was our reigning champions, KT Rolster.
Yeah, Hanwha Life really floundering in the early game, but towards the late game, a lot of it had to do with Bono being out of position, mistakes being made, but that largely happened because of the control, because of the desperation instilled by KT Rolster that had them basically from about 7 minutes in, with their wave positioning, with their priority, with the fact that Score is got himself around the map so beautifully. Wasn't a lot of options for Hanwha Life Esports, so you want to blame Bono and say that he was terrible and things like that. Didn't have a lot of options given to him that game, even though, yes, he did make some blunders.
Again, you have to still put the microscope on. Then why does he fifth pick the Zac, has the jungle counter pick, and choose to go for the team choice, and yet the team choice wasn't really integrated really well into the in-game plan.
Yeah.
So that's something where you have to draw your attention. I feel like learning points here, because we kind of expected Hanwha Life to be a struggler and KT to be a bolter. I felt the KT bot lane was clear that we could expect.
Yes.
It's a new KT bot lane and a new pairing even from the Kesper Cup, and largely pretty clean stuff on the Sivir Tom.
Yeah, shedding a single tear for the fact that it's Deft's former champion in Sivir, some of his best plays coming on that champion, and of course, being a former KT Rolster player, but Zenit, some of his plays were extremely clean. Was a big fan of watching what he could do on the bottom side.
You know what else is clean? Surely the MVP in score on
Yeah.
Gragas. His Gragas, Hillbilly Gragas every time. Go home, buy that skin, and cosplay score, because he is so good at playing the Hillbilly Gragas. He was ahead of the play. His vision score was, for once, a very relevant statistic.
Yeah.
KT Rolster, we knew it was going to be the flying V of the top side to lead the way, and some of those invades onto the Zac really made it look easy, and it was beautiful stuff.
Well, we're going to have a look at the damage graph here, and you can see Sivir popping off. 8,000 more damage than the Ezreal is something to talk about. And this is the guy that only did 19% of his team's damage in an undying game on Lucian in his first Kesper Cup outing. This was dominance with how he was able to navigate these fights, apart from just one of them. Otherwise, you know, given the fact that he's basically a rookie, I know spent a lot of time on different teams, but certainly not in the LCK, and certainly not starting for the debut game of the championship team.
And Hanwha Life, 3 kills, nothing.